Hello, 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 y'all. I'm here with Miss Ashley Armstrong, and I'm not going to steal her thunder. Ashley, who are you, and what are you doing here?
Oh my gosh. That is seriously the biggest loaded question you could ever ask anybody. I'm here because you had asked me to be here. So that's number one. I'm here for you and for your audience. Number two, who am I? Well, I'm Ashley Armstrong, the hidden rules expert. And I do a lot of things. So I don't technically have a one line intro that most people would have, generally speaking, but I'll break it up for you to make it easy. First and foremost, I help people make passive income with new technologies with our educational company. I'm a partner in the world's largest educational company. We first started off with crypto, moving into AI, and broke all world records with launching all those things. So that was pretty interesting to go through that process. My passion project, on the other hand, is I help high achievers unpack and navigate the paradox that comes with success for the most part, letting people understand in advance that if you are a high achiever and you're trying to go after goals, there's going to be pitfalls and issues and things that you're not aware of that's going to come down the track. But if you are aware of it, you can see the signs and symptoms and basically maintain your sanity as you're going after your goals. So
Hmm.
those are the two little slight one-line intros that
Love.
might base where we're at right now.
Sure. So first question I kind of have there is you mentioned two things that you're doing, and obviously super successful with what you're doing, setting world records. How do you balance your time? I know before we hopped on here, you said you got a million things to do.
Yeah.
What are your tactics and strategies that you do to kind of balance all these things at the same time?
Honestly, I'm just as human as everybody else. No one really has a true answer for that. And when I say that, and what I really mean is that we hear speakers like myself or experts or someone who's been in the field, on the field of play, as we like to call it, for years, decades, whatever that might be. But at the end of the day, what works for me is not going to work for you. Let's just put that out there first and foremost. There's no one right answer. There's no one size fits all in that regard. Some days I am awesome at balancing being an entrepreneur, being a partner in a massively huge company, working on my own side project, plus being a spouse and being a mom to young teenagers. And some days I totally screw it all up. And, I go through the typical mom thing where I'm not doing enough, I'm not there enough, whatever that might be. But at the end of the day, what I have found to help me through this process, I'm going to be 42 in a week. So getting older is amazing. I freaking love it. I've had lots of TV segments on the fact that women should love getting older, but we'll save that for another time. But what I have found has worked for me thus far is just being in the now, being okay with the decision that you make right now, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, it's irrelevant. You make the best decision for where you are right now. That's it. The clock starts again tomorrow morning. Every 12 hours, it's going around, it's going around, it's going around, it's doing its thing. So, the best thing that people can do is just be grateful for where they're at, be in the now as best as possible, attitude of gratitude, and just make the best decision. And what's going to happen is going to happen. It is what it is at this very moment in time. And if you don't like the outcome, make a different decision.
So you're that's how you kind of go about focusing your day and your time, and I think that's super genuine and honest there. I think
Yeah.
that's
Well,
good
your
to hear.
calendar has a lot to do with it, right? So if you, as an example, if you are a consultant and you're going to be, looking for bringing in a new client that you're going to look after, you're going to represent, you're going to advise, whatever your role might be, and especially when it comes to high achievers, you know how successful someone is at maintaining and accomplishing their goals and just being a go-getter, you know what I mean? If it's going to be worth your time and energy, if you just look at their calendar. That's all you got to look at is their calendar. Because if their calendar is not set with the tasks and things that you need to do, whether it's personal, whether it's business, whatever that might be, I mean, like you're just randomly doing things on a daily basis that doesn't actually add up to accomplishing a goal that you want. You're just like, going by the seat of your pants for the most part. So
Mm.
your calendar definitely does need to be set in order to help you maintain the momentum and the rhythm to get things done. So there is that little added note that we need to add in there.
Hmm. And how did you kind of go about creating this Hidden Rules platform? I'm gonna butcher the name there. Hidden Rules Expert
Nah,
Platform, I
you
think is
got
what
it.
it's called. And
Yeah,
what was that journey like?
Yeah, I have a few different things. So it's very interesting. For a decade, I was a product development manufacturer, an e-com expert. So it was like coming up with products, making them from scratch, getting them made overseas, importing them. I'm Canadian, but I would import everything and sell it into the US market through websites, through Amazon, the whole damn nine yards. So for that kind of was where the name the hidden rules expert sort of got coined, because I knew the hidden rules to leverage these platforms to, sell products, to help grow, companies and product lines and so on and so forth. So that's where that sort of came from. But at the end of the day, it's a beautiful umbrella, because anything that I decided to pivot or move or transition with, I very easily could fit it underneath that umbrella. That's the beautiful thing about branding a name, that allows you to pivot underneath that umbrella of a name. So that's where the hidden rules expert came from. And actually my good friend and mentor actually helped me coin it. So like anything else, I don't do anything by myself. I get help from other experts and other people who are in my space. So that's one side. The other side, where I'm just Ashley Armstrong, which is a founding partner of The Plan, which is that, the largest educational company I was telling you about. And I'm just good old me, on camera, doing everything that could possibly be done to take care of our tens of thousands of students, and creating new training programs, and doing the webinars, and doing our TV show, and all this other fun stuff. And then my passion project is actually called the Success Monster. So I kind of have three separate little laneways that I like to kind of sort of pivot into, where I'm the hidden rules expert technically in all of them, if you so see fit to call it that. But at the end of the day, I'm just Ashley.
And how do you, doing so many things, how do you go about building the teams for those different projects? You said you're managing tens of thousands of students. What does that look like to build a
Yeah.
platform that manages that?
Well, there's a few things behind that. First and foremost, now that I am in my 40s and I've had the authentic, real conversation with myself, I realize I truly am just an entrepreneur, like just a full-on serial entrepreneur. I'm not really a business owner, even though I've built seven-figure, e-com businesses and manufacturing and consulting and all this other fun stuff. But what I found after doing this for 20 years is that I don't really like to manage people.
Mm.
And, when you think of, an entrepreneur and even just a business, of course, the whole goal is to be able to build something to put someone else in place so that they can continue, so you can go and have a happy life and come back and be like, okay, so what did you guys do? Did we make our quota? Da, 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 da. I just really don't like necessarily having people around to manage in that regard. And so I really truly am an entrepreneur. I'm kind of flighty. I can kind of pivot the seat of my pants. I can go at my own motion. I hire and bring people in for specific projects that I'm doing. And I'm just enjoying life. I just want to do as many different things until I die, is basically what it is. So that was kind of like one realization. On the flip side of that, to answer your question, when it comes to the partnership stuff and having all our members and a massively huge team, I was not the one who started that. My business partner, Dan Hollings, was the one who started that, because he was the master and the expert behind, the crypto scene, excuse me, the crypto scene, which is definitely not my scene. But, I worked with him for a decade on a lot of different projects. Like, we're going to be doing this thing. You want you to come in? I said no for like 4 months straight. I don't have time for this. I'm all over TV. I'm doing all this different stuff. I'm so set on what I'm trying to accomplish. Anyways, he convinced me. And the way that he has done it, I don't know anyone else in the industry. And I've talked about this with so many people at dinner parties and entrepreneurial events and on stage, where it's just like, how often do you find yourself in a position where someone has an idea or goal, and through their networking, their long-term friendships and relationships, they're able to bring people together for a collective reason or cause? And there's no titles, there's no ego, there's no nothing. It's like, this is what we're trying to do. Who wants to do what? And there's about 5 partners when we got started. And we would just raise our hand like, I'll do that. I'll do that. I don't know how to do that. I'll learn how to do that. Is basically what we did. We were literally building the plane as it was falling for the most part. And in the first year, when we launched that training program, which again, it was in crypto, we broke all records for the largest digital marketing launch ever in history, and did 57 million in 7 months, tapped the year out at 70 million, which was just like, blew our freaking brains. We're like, we had no idea that that was going to happen. It was just, one of those things. So Now, 3 years later, what is that team? How do we find that team? Really, at the end of the day, it was just finding like-minded hustlers like ourselves. My business partner likes to call us like the raggedy tag group of entrepreneurs, because that's truly what we are. Every single one of us has our own businesses. We've all been exceptionally successful in different areas. We all bring something completely different to the table. We all check the ego at the door, and we literally fell in love with each other as friends, business partners, and just someone who wants to create the most amazing experience for our members and whatnot. And so having that collective vision, the collective goal, making sure that we are doing and providing the best we possibly can while we are on this earth doesn't really happen. Because most time when you come into a partnership or you're even starting a business, there's hierarchies, there's like, a different type of, I guess you could say, levels of who's going to be doing what. There's titles, for what you do and whatever. And we just left all of that at the door at the end of the day. And so as we grew, we started bringing people in that were already part of our space. We brought in students of ours and we brought them up into like helping support our members. Like we just organically did it by having fun and seeing what the world's going to bring us at the end of the day. So it really kind of starts with a thought, getting yourself around the good quality people that have different skill sets than you have, and then coming together with a collective reason and a collective end goal that we can all put our hands up and say, yeah, I'll work towards that. And that's really how that came about for the most part. It was not traditional in any way, shape, or form.
Sounds like it's not traditional, but super organic.
Very organic. Yeah.
I've got to ask, what's with the hand?
I know, right? It's like, woo, what is this thing? This is my Success Monster glove. It's custom made by an award-winning FX makeup artist for the TV movie industry, Brianna Leto. And we spent months and months and months crafting this thing. And really, my side project, which is I did my TED talk on, it's called Success Monster, Conquering the Unseen Challenges of Achievement. And there's going to be a book based on that that's coming out here as well. So this was the visual identifier to the brand. Really, the whole notion of a success monster, especially for high achievers, is that we all have one. It's like the good and bad. It's all a part of us. It helps us get what we want. But at the same time, if we don't check that thing, it will devour us whole. And so this is just kind of like a quick little reminder of, okay, pay attention to what you're doing, look into the pitfalls. I have obviously, a bunch of other things that go along with that, but it's just like the little brand identifier, I guess you could say. So anytime I'm speaking or doing anything, I'm wearing this. Now I did wear it into my TED talk. The only problem is that it sparkled too much. So all the lights and the 5 cameras and everything, they couldn't handle it. So unfortunately, I actually had to take it off during the talk. Very unfortunate, but that's probably going to be the only time it will come off for the most part. So anytime I'm here talking about anything fun, she's on. It's a nice little reminder.
So what message does the Success Monster have for aspiring speakers, professional speakers, business owners, or kind of like people like yourself, serial entrepreneurs?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, at the end of the day, there's a lot behind it, but just to sum it up really simply is, the easiest thing to think about it, because of mental health and the openness of conversation that we have nowadays, luckily and thank God. If we look at what new parents go through or women go through when they are conceiving and then having a baby. And now everyone's like, what are you talking about? This is so far left in the left field. Well, I have a mom's group of 2,300 moms down in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. I've lived there for 14 years. So I created this whole community. And I was a childbirth educator and a naturopath at the time as well. And I started seeing like, oh my gosh, this postpartum depression is an issue. And this is like 20 years, like forever ago, right? And then all of a sudden it became kind of normal to talk about, oh, there are signs and symptoms. There is postpartum depression. It's totally normal. Every woman should know about it. Everyone, like, what are the pitfalls? What are the signs to make sure you don't get sucked into that? And that became okay to talk about finally, which was super wonderful. And then being an athlete, of course, being a mom myself, and then having 2,300 moms that I look after for 13, 14 years now. And then, of course, also being, an entrepreneur, especially with the big success that we've had with our partnership, I started realizing that there was a pattern. And it was like totally unbeknownst to me. And I'm like, why? I was just like, it's the worst thing in the world that I've ever experienced, of this like massive depression. Like I had everything that I've ever wanted in my life. I've accomplished every single bloody goal. I'm like, I could die happy now. Like everything's great. But this is just ridiculous. What is going on? What is happening? So the whole concept of the success monster and the whole point of what it's bringing in is just making sure that high achievers, people, and that's anyone who has goals and they're constantly going after and doing something. They don't have to be high performance. They don't have to be multimillionaires to be considered a high achiever. That you are going to do everything you can to reach the top of that mountain. And as soon as you hit that goal, guess what? You're going to fall so effing far down that you're not going to understand what's going to happen. Like the wind's going to be completely taken out of you. The bigger the goal, the bigger the fall. And it's really akin to postpartum depression, especially for athletes, especially for anyone who's like worked so hard to accomplish something. And then you get it. And then the fulfillment's not there. And then you're like, you start going into FOMO. And then you're like, now what? What's next? What do I do? How do I accomplish this exact same thing again? Think of like an artist, someone who like wrote a number one hit song. Now, guess what? Go write another number one hit song. And they're like, well, how the frick am I supposed to be able to do that? Like, this was just like, it just happened. You know what I mean? So really at the end of the day, the success monster and helping high achievers conquer the unseen challenges of achievement is to let them know that there are these issues. You're going to come across it. These are the signs and symptoms. This is what you need to understand for post-success blues, or AKA postpartum depression, if you want to like line those two up. And then here's the techniques you can use to very quickly and easily get yourself out of it, back on track so you can hit your next goal without literally losing your sanity, or in the worst case scenario, wanting to take one's life, which happens to a lot of high achievers out there. And I've experienced that myself as well. And so that's why that message is exceptionally, like, it's so core to me that I have to get that out there, because no one is talking about the unhidden challenges. Is like literally what you're saying. You want to pull back the curtain on business models. I want to pull back the curtain on what it actually takes to accomplish your goals. And it's beautiful, but it's scary as hell. And it can be so detrimental at the exact same time if you're not aware of what you're doing. And that's very long-winded, but that's pretty much what it is.
And now, question for the speakers out there and business owners: what lessons have you had from challenges that you've had to overcome balancing your speaking and your, you said you're a serial entrepreneur, so that means multiple businesses, businesses at the same time, while still getting those appearances on stage, making time for podcast appearances like this, getting on TV? How do you balance those two, or are they very linked?
They're all linked, but at the end of the day, I'm a human being. So we all have front burners and back burners. This is very common, line for women. A lot of the times it's like, I'm always on the back burner. My kids come first, my spouse comes first, the household comes first. And that's sort of a normal nuance that women tend to hear a lot. And at the end of the day, there really is, I truly believe there's no such thing as balance. Everyone talks about balance. And yes, we do end up finding an equilibrium that's going to work for us, again, in the moment, in the time that you're in. But in order to be balanced, you have to be unbalanced first. So you have to think about that. Everyone's just like, well, how do you balance everything? Well, first, I got to be unbalanced first. Like shit's got to be hitting the fan in order for me to realize I'm unbalanced. And then I got to put the motion in order to become balanced. And that's just a cycle, like a heartbeat of life. It's up and down and up and down. And our job is to maintain that up and down as best as possible. So it doesn't spike too high and it doesn't spike too low, that we can kind of find that equilibrium that we can maintain to maintain, again, our sanity at the end of the day. So when it comes to business and everything else, it's just making the conscious decision as what's the best thing that I can do right now that's going to help me accomplish my goal. It's going to help, the path moving forward. Again, this is all a passion project, my TED stuff, that's speaking, the book, the technique, the toolkit that's being built right now, that's going to be up for everyone to just use in the heat of the moment. It's a passion project. So I work on it when I'm inspired by it. I don't necessarily hold myself to any deadlines, which I know is very also really weird, because everyone's like, why don't you have a deadline for this stuff? I'm like, well, I've been writing a book for, over a year and I wanted it done a long time ago. But every single time that I force something, it ends up blowing up in my face. So all by the grace of God, all by the universe, I'm just sitting here making the actionable steps that I need, speaking to the right people. And then I end up having another experience that I needed to have in order for me to provide better insight and outcome in the project that I'm working on. So I try not to force things too much at the end of the day. And of course, my partnership definitely does take 95% of my time, energy, and effort because it's a massively huge thing. So for anyone out there, you're wondering like, how do you balance things? First and foremost, take the word balance out of your head is the way that I look at it. And just whatever you need to happen right now. If you need to put money in your bank account right now, then you need to ask yourself, what things are on my calendar that are going to help me put money in my bank account right now? And if you look at your calendar and there's nothing in there that is saying reach out to this person, prospect, whatever needs to be done, if it's not on the calendar, then you're not doing the right steps to help you accomplish that goal for the time that you have available for it. And that's really what it is
Right.
at the end of the day.
It just started raining, so my computer was getting rained on, so I had to come in here. But I had a
Smart.
question regarding what you just said, and I think this could be relevant for a lot of speakers and business owners out there. What is the balance between forcing something and attracting something in business?
Mm, right. Oh, it's such a good question. I think there's
It's
so
a
many
tough
different
question.
scenarios. There's so many different angles and scenarios you look at, and every single person is going to have obviously a different outcome when you ask them. But for speakers and authors and trying to not to force something, but have that end goal be what you want, momentum is key in everything that we do in life. You know, especially I was an ex-pro athlete. Momentum is super crucial. And then when you move that over into entrepreneur aspect or business aspect, again, it's super crucial. When you're feeling good, it's so much easier to continue to feel good. But then when you like kind of fall out of that momentum, you feel like crap. You're like, geez, it takes a while to get that engine, up and going again, but it can get done. So that balance between the two of them of forcing and not forcing is really just constantly checking in on yourself is really what it is at the end of the day. And just doing a lot of detecting and reflecting, which is a sports term. But anytime you do something like the end of the week, I do this regularly on a weekly basis, usually every Sunday. And I do it with my spouse, which is nice. I do a detect and correct. Think about what we've done in the last few days. Analyze what it is that you had done. And did you get the results that you're looking for? If it's yes, then make note of it. Great. Repeat, rinse and repeat. If the answer is no, then it's like, okay, I got to make some better decisions. And a lot of times the forcing part is people rushing to get things done. But there's a difference between rushing to get something done and maintaining your momentum. And it's such a fine line that, you can very easily tip to one side or the other. So for the speakers and the coaches and everyone who's out there, have your goal, set your calendar, and do what you need to do in order to take the actionable steps towards them. But at the same time, don't not stop and check in with yourself, right? Even for writing my book, I have been writing this particular one for well over a year, and I could have easily published it a long time ago. But I'm just sitting here going, no, I'm going to get more feedback. I'm going to get the TED Talk up. I'm going to, talk to some more people. I'm going to go to more masterminds. I'm going to start like verbally describing what it is that I'm trying to do to make sure that it's hitting with the audience the way that I want it to. And guess what? It didn't. I did go to conferences. I did get up on stage. I did all these things and I was testing the water. I was testing my theories. I was testing my verbiage. I was testing my audience. Do they even know this? Do they even need to know this? Is this the right verbiage to be using? And when I first started out, it was totally incorrect. Everyone's like, what is that? What does that mean? I don't understand it. I'm like, oh, that was very good feedback. Okay, great. And then they're just like, well, I'm not going to talk to you until I'm successful. And I'm like, oh, shit. All right. We definitely need to change around the messaging here because if you are going to talk to me after you've hit the wall and you're in the worst depression of your life where, it could be to the point where you no longer want to be here, which I never wanted to see that happen to any more entrepreneurs or high achievers or athletes, because I know quite a few personally. I'm just sitting here going, this is not working. I need to speak to people as they're on their journey to their goal so that they know the signs and symptoms before they get there. So that force and momentum for anyone who's out there, just let the universe take the reins at the end of the day. Do the work, be prepared, show up, and let it go. freaking let it go. It's all you got to do because the universe will always provide. And every time something doesn't work out the way you don't want it to work out, there's always a freaking good reason for it. And you're going to find it. And hindsight's 2020 when you get a chance to look back. And it's like, we only have one life to live. Enjoy the goddamn journey, people. Like, stop trying to rush through it. Cause I was a massive rusher. I mean, like, everything I'd done. Because again, ski racing was my sport. And it's like, how fast can you go? What's the straightest line you can take to get from like point A to point B down the scariest bloody pitch in the world, and trying not to end up in the hospital, which I did many a times. That's what I was born and raised into. I have a whole family of professional athletes in that sport and many other sports. And it's all like, go, go, go. If you're not number one, then you're nothing. You know what I mean? Like, you think of Ricky Bobby. If you ain't number one, then, you know, you didn't win anything at all. So being born and raised in a family like that, where it's all about rush, get to the goal, get the job done, you obviously do your best at it. It did not translate very well into the business world, because when you do rush things, you end up missing stuff, you end up screwing up and whatever. But at the same time, does provide you momentum. So it's just like, it's a double-edged bloody sword. So how the hell do you handle that? There's no answer for it. You're going to do what you do best for what you do in the moment of right now for you, yourself. And if you're lucky enough, you're surrounding yourself with amazing human beings who are also high achievers, who are also doing something, so that you have someone that you can cry with, that you can speak to, you can blubber to, you can complain to, you can like vent, to do whatever you need to do. But there are also those people that check you. You're like, okay, great. You had a problem. I'm so happy that you had that problem. And they're like, what? I'm just literally like pouring my guts out to you right now. And you're telling me you're happy to hear me bitch and complain? And it's like, yeah, I am. What are you going to do about it now? And they're like, oh, yeah. Okay. All right. I got it out of my chest. I got it out of me. Now it's time to take action. Let's move forward. So it's like that. I know it's very long-winded, but it's like that happy fine line. There's really no answer for anyone at the end of the day, but it's just like taking everything into consideration, everything that I said previous to literally where we're at right now. If you can kind of just throw that around, let it marinate a little bit, enjoy life as best as possible, enjoy the journey, every single step, in order to get to those goals, you'll find there's going to be fulfillment waiting for you, rather than an open, vast hole of unfulfillment and wondering, why did I do it? And where am I going to go from here? You won't experience that if you just enjoy the journey and slow down for the most part.
So momentum and tips to overcome that. Is there a specific word for it, the postpartum success depression, or is that the success paradox that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's post success blues. It's the easiest way that I say that for the most part, because as soon as you say there's like post success depression, no entrepreneur wants to be labeled that they're depressed. So again, this is what you don't know until you start talking to people and hearing what they have to say and getting feedback. So I'm like, oh, no one likes to be labeled depressed. Okay, great. So we'll say post success blues, because it's not so harsh, but it's all really the same thing at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. So for you and these businesses you founded, there's obviously been a lot of very, very difficult moments. As Elon Musk said, starting a business is like, and he said, eating glass and having like, decay in your mouth and cut your mouth.
Yeah.
For you, what has been the most challenging and difficult moment personally through all of this entire entrepreneurial career, and what tactics do you use to make it through that moment?
What was the most challenging moment in my career thus far, and what did I do to get out of it? Well, there's so many, as you had said. The biggest one really is the most recent one that I had, which, from an outside perspective, everyone's like, what is the matter with you? That makes no sense. And you see this a lot, especially if you happen to scroll through social media and someone who is a high achiever, an established individual, publicly state that they're struggling with something. And a very large part of the population is like, oh, you have everything. Why should you be depressed? Or da 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 da. And it really breaks my heart when I see that. And there's lots of reasons. One, if you don't know, you don't know, but you don't know. It is what it is. Like, what can you say? On the other side of things, it's like, they're human beings. they do have emotions too, you know. Life isn't all daisies and roses. They do have the same kind of crap that you're dealing with on a daily basis. You're just seeing their life in a public manner where your life is more private. So that's one little side of things. But the biggest, most craziest thing that I've ever experienced was when our partnership team built a course from scratch, and then we end up breaking the records out of blue, out of nowhere. It was so fast, it was so unexpected that there was no time to let it sink in. There was no time to prepare for it, not only professionally and dealing with tens of thousands of people simultaneously, all at once, and having a small team trying to figure it all out, not having the bandwidth to do everything, not having enough people to execute and do everything in a fast enough manner. And then on the personal side of things, having everything, reaching the bloody goals that you're always wanting to reach, at some point in time as an entrepreneur, like every single entrepreneur wants to reach what we have reached. And just to, unbeknownst to me, get it. And then having the aftermath of dealing with taxes and government and not knowing any of, like more success is more problems is really what it is at the end of the day. Cause you don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know, which is a massive conundrum. And at that point, I literally, truly was in the most deepest, darkest despair of my entire life where I no longer wanted to be here. And everyone's just like, what? You made all this money, you made all this success, and you're like, da 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 da, and all these accolades, da, da, da. And my personal life, I mean, the panic attacks were at least once a day, like on the floor, fetal position, not understanding what's going to happen, like the body sweats, the head aches, the the terror, the massive terror that I was constantly feeling. How are we going to do this again? How are we going to do, 100 million next? How are we going to, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like, it was bang, bang, like all again. And of course, it's the 6 inches between my ears bull crap that was going on. It's not necessarily anyone from the outside. It's my own worst enemy. It's my monster coming in and just tearing me apart. And I really did not know how to manage it. It was brutal, and having my daughters watch me go through that, I know was a good life lesson for them in one aspect, but on the other aspect, I wish they hadn't witnessed me do it. You know what I mean? Go through it. It's kind of, again, double-edged sword in that regard. But the way that I got through it is literally what my TED Talks about and what my book's about is that journey and developing the success monster technique. And I spell monster not the traditional way. It's MNSTR, which is mindset, neurochemical satisfaction, treadmill, and restoration of motivation and wellness. And being an athlete, whenever you're doing anything in sports, you have to have an out of body experience when you're training in order for you to see and feel, is my elbow in the right angle? Am I too forward? Am I too far back? You know what I mean? Like, you really have to detect and correct every single aspect of your body, because your body is the tool for the sport. And just like your body is the tool for your business, you know what I mean? Going through all of that. And so when you are in a crazy ass storm, you can't see anything, nothing that anyone's going to say is going to help you. You just want to stay in bed. And you go in and out of all these things. You still have to be functional. You still have to show up for work. You still have to show up for your spouses and your kids and everything else like that. And it feels like you're constantly pouring from an empty cup for the most part. Like, you just never get enough sleep. You just never get enough energy or whatever. And so taking, the last 40 years of my experience, again, being, pro athletic, family, with Olympic backgrounds, I started just taking everything that I had knew, all these epiphanies that I realized, these patterns that were happening again and again and again. And I'm like, why is no one talking about this? Why was I not warned about this experience? Why is no one bringing this to the surface? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, just like no one talked about postpartum depression for women having a baby. And I, worked on that forever with supporting women in a whole nother country. And a lot of them didn't even speak the damn language that they spoke, you know what I mean? Which is also kind of crazy because my Spanish was horrible and I moved to Mexico, not speaking Spanish, but I learned it with some charades or whatnot. And so the monster technique is really like every time you're in a storm, no matter what it is, you just go MNSTR, M, mindset. Okay. Where the hell is my mindset right now? Am I in doom and gloom or I'm in attitude of gratitude? Easiest freaking question to ask yourself. Whatever that answer is, you already know what you need to do. And that's the most beautiful thing. Is like we all hear the same crap just in a different way. Like everything is slightly regurgitated or what's that? Curated is the word. Everything that we hear is curated one way or the other, is regurgitated in someone else's voice or a little slight epiphany to it. And so that's the easiest thing. And then the neurochemical aspect is that no matter what you do, you're going to experience this massive shoot and drop of the chemical tides that go through your brain, whether you like it or not, because you're human. And there's like the biggest bloody pharmacy in the world inside your brain. So if you honestly think that you're not going to feel some sort of up and down and adrenaline rush and dopamine rush, and then all of a sudden it disappears, and you're going to be like, oh my God, where's my hit? Where's my hit? Like, I'm not feeling it anymore. Like, now I feel like totally depressed. How do I get that freaking rage? How do I get that, like, that motivation again? Where do I feel that chemical rush again? You know what I mean? Like, and you if you don't realize that your brain's doing that to you automatically, you're lost. But if you know that your brain is going to be doing that, if you know you're going to feel that, you know it's going to come, then it's going to go, and you're just like, okay, it's going now. It's not a big deal. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to do a little walk, and I'm just going to like work my way out of it. So much easier. You know what I mean? And then S is satisfaction, intrinsic versus extrinsic, which is what the main reason, especially for entrepreneurs, have to deal with right now. It's like, we're all trying to go for the watches and the cars and like $1 million in the bank account. But at the end of the day, the watches and the cars and the $1 million in the bank account don't do anything for you once you get there, because you start realizing you're hollow. You like, where is, like, what's the reason why I'm doing this? I don't feel as good as I think I should be feeling. It didn't satisfy me, didn't answer all the bloody questions. I am not as happy as I thought I would be. So if there's, the intrinsic, allure is set as slowing down, enjoying the every single step of the way, there's a true passionate tether or tie to the end of the road that's going to fulfill you as you making an impact to those around you. You're not really going to fall into that pitfall. You know what I mean? Because it's not about you, it's about other people. And that usually makes that a little bit easier for the most part. And then T is treadmill. Like, oh my God, the treadmill, the whole point of the damn treadmill is most people don't realize it is that we have a baseline level of happiness. There's so many documentaries about this on Netflix. I actually think there's one called Happiness that came out like maybe 10 years ago, if you're ever interested in taking a look at it. But it's literally just like, you can make a certain amount, studies have shown you can make a certain amount of money, like 60 grand a year or whatever. And if you make more than that, you ain't happier. You know what I mean? Like, as soon as you have like your roof over your head, your food in your bodily, like the main things in your life taken care of, any more income doesn't actually help you. It can actually hurt you. More money, more problems. Biggie Smalls said it right, forever ago. And it's very, very true. But that baseline level of happiness is this: you're literally on a treadmill going nowhere. And no matter like how big of a amazing thing you might have experienced, you're going to shoot right up and you're going to come right back to that treadmill and you're just going to keep going there. It's this rat reel, this race that we all feel, especially as entrepreneurs and business owners. And so understanding that you're always going to come to this baseline level of happiness no matter what you do, because that's your psyche, that's just your reset button. That's just where you kind of hang out. You're good. Now you can of course move it up, knowing that it's there, and you can like raise your baseline level of happiness. That's enlightenment. If you think about it that way. But knowing that it's there is great. And of course, restoration, which is motivation and wellness. I think we all understand that, taking care of yourself, trying to go for walks, stretching, attitude of gratitude, like all those things that most entrepreneurs don't do, because we're always rush, get to the finish line as best as possible. So that technique of understanding those key points, and that I have like this crazy ass monster in me that is giving me everything that I've ever wanted, but it's devouring me at the exact same time because I didn't recognize it. I didn't understand how it operated with my personality. There's 9 different monster archetypes. There's actually a quiz that people can take to find out what their success monster is. But going through just that very quick little technique, the MNSTR, when you're in the moment, it gives you something to focus on, because entrepreneurs and athletes need something to focus on. If we don't have a bullseye, we're freaking crazy. I mean, like, we feel lost to the wind. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. Da, 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 da. That's the worst thing in the world. But if you have a technique with the MNSTR, every single one is one thing to focus on. Do a little bit of a deep dive, recognize where you are within it, And then you can move on to like the N, recognize where you're in with it. Then you can move into the S, and you just kind of keep going through it. And by the time you're done and you get into the motivation and wellness aspect of it, this could take days, this could take weeks, this could take months. It really depends on individual person and how fast they go through it and what they're doing with their life right now. But it gives you something to focus on. It gives you like the best tools of that detecting and correcting of your own self as a human being, nothing on the outside. It gives you the opportunity and the power to be able to, one, regain your sanity, two, regain your momentum, and getting back on track and not feeling like completely lost. So the biggest worst thing that I've ever experienced in my life also provided me the epiphany for hopefully a tool that I am trying my damnedest to share with all the people out there who are just trying to make their life amazing until the day they die, that you're going to make it amazing. You're going to accomplish your goals. There are a few things you should be aware of in the process of accomplishing your goals. And these are the tools that you can use when you come up against a wall with some of these issues so that you can keep moving forward without skipping a beat. And that's really what it is at the end of the day.
Full of value there. I got one last question. I know we're almost at time here. You mentioned, you're familiar with the phrase, you probably are, your network is your net worth. You hear that all the time.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And that is kind of an example of you founded the 70 million, $76 million launch with the partners that you had met. You also mentioned masterminds. Are there some masterminds that you've attended, that you've met, been able to meet these people that you made this fantastic network with? If so, what are
Oh,
those
yeah.
masterminds that you found most valuable, and where can other people find them? And then, from all this value, where can other people find you, your content, your socials? Where can I send Ashley a message, and where can
Mm.
I get from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's a that's a whole other can of worms when it comes to masterminds and conferences and whatever, because I have lots of just opinions and things to say on that. Your business moves at the speed of relationships, 100 freaking percent. Super cute, super crucial for people to remember that. I'm very ambivert, so I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, but predominantly I'm very much a hermit. But you put me on stage, you put me in a room, I will take over the entire space and you have no no other option but to listen to me. Is generally how I handle most of those things. And so when it comes to masterminds, I used to go to a lot of them. I definitely invest big time into mentorship and into masterminds to find people. It was also crucial because when I lived in Mexico for 14 years, there was really no one like me where I lived. I was in Cabo, for crying out loud. It's a party town, and I don't party, which is kind of weird by any means. I don't even drink. But so I always had to fly out and leave to kind of meet people. And I am still friends with people that I met 10 years ago because of going to conferences or masterminds. But as I've gotten older, what I realized is that, you know, I'm not really good at deciding what to spend my money on sometimes. You know, like coming to terms, I'm like, did I really need to hire that person? Did I hire them too early? You know what I mean? I have that happen way too many times. And that includes masterminds that are like, 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand. Like we all know there's 100 grand masterminds. And you really have to ask yourself, am I at a point in my life where I really am truly ready? Like my entire foundation of my business is prepared to meet the people I need in order to take it up a notch. Because what I had found is when you go to, conferences or masterminds, now if I go to a conference, I rarely ever actually watch the speakers, which is kind of weird because I'm spending like all this money to show up to this place. I go there to go people hunting is really what it is. To your point, I always have a goal. Like I want to meet one person, I want to impact one person, and then I can walk away happy for the most part. And when you're going to these masterminds, there's so many different versions. There's some that just shove so much information down your throat that you walk away so fuzzled that you're like, why did I even bother going? Like your head is spinning so much faster now than before you went. So it actually hurts you. And that's also why whenever I go to conferences, as an example, I pick and choose who I want to listen to because I already know what I'm trying to do. I'm already on my path. I already have the people in place. So I don't want to listen to anyone else who's going to make me go, like squirrel, shiny object that way now. You know what I mean? I'm going to go try to pick up something else. But I'm 42. So I've learned to recognize again these patterns and these things that are helping me and hurting me. And there's other masterminds that have zero people on stage. They have no one really talking. They're very intimate. I'm not going to say the names of them because I don't want to say the names of them, but I have been to ones which are all about networking for high performers like ourselves. And I love that one because I didn't have to worry about being infiltrated with more information or more ideas and more things that I'm like, oh, I should do that. That's like going to stop me from being on the pathway that I'm on. But then sometimes the people who are at them aren't my jam. You know what I mean? They're just not my kind of people. I'd be lucky if I can like meet one or two people, which is the only goal that I have anytime I go anywhere is just to meet at least one person and walk away from. And usually I always end up meeting like, 5 people that are super amazing. So for those who are like looking into, where you're going to go when it comes to these masterminds, yes, business moves at the speed of relationships, but you have to choose the relationships at the right time for when you need them. And as adults, we don't think about that. Like we go to elementary school, we go to high school, you're forced to be friends with people that are in your class or in your grade or in the 4 walls of your building, even if it's an office, same bloody thing. You're kind of forced to get along or not with the people who you're seeing on a daily basis at work or whatever that might be. And they're always like, when you become an adult, you can pick and choose who your friends are, but we still do the same bloody thing. Even when we become adults, we kind of like just automatically take these people in as our friends because they're in the circumference as to what we do on a daily basis. And so what I challenge everyone who's listening here, whenever you decide to open up your wallet to invest into masterminds or conferences or whatever, because that your business will move at the speed of relationships. And if you get into a room where people are doing better than you, they have a Rolodex of amazing human beings that they can introduce you to if it's the right fit, if they like you, if you blah, 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 whatever that might be. That's all kind of well and known now for most people. But my challenge for everyone is do you need it? Is it the right timing? And who do you want to meet? Don't go to these things just like, I'm just going to show up and like listen to people. No, have a bloody plan as to why you're spending the money, because that money needs to come back into your bank and hopefully a hell of a lot more. That's the whole goal for it for the most part. And sometimes it's not more until 4 years later or 5 years later, because, it's like depositing money, into your savings account that one day you're going to look at it and go, woo, my God, this is super amazing. And collecting people, you know what I mean? As you go headhunting. I go headhunting for people at conferences because I'm collecting people that I could help, people that I can motivate, and then people who are inspiring to me, people who are better than me, doing more than me. Because I'm like, shit, if you can do it, I can do it too. Like, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Like, I want to have a Netflix show in the next couple of years. I never in a million years thought I'd ever be able to one, think of actually doing that. And number 2, could I even possibly do that? And then I know someone who actually did it. And I'm like, oh crap. Well, if they did it, why the hell can't I do it? You know what I mean? So your glass ceiling that you put there unconsciously that holds us back can get shattered by walking into these rooms, into these masterminds, by seeing what other people do. So that's all well and amazing. But you really just want to ask yourself, is this the right person? Is this the right direction? Is this the right time to invest the money? And am I ready to bring more new ideas on? Because sometimes we're so fuzzled out that, again, head on a spindle. You're like shiny object syndrome just going around everywhere. And it's just really not going to help you. Or you're just doing it for entertainment. And that's perfectly okay too. I know lots of people that, they go to conferences and masterminds on a regular, like multiple times a month. And flights are so much cheaper in the US, let me tell you, to be able to do something like that. And that's their entertainment. That's their socialization. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they do. And that's amazing. That totally works for them. For me, like humans are like energy vampires. They just suck all the bloody energy out of me. And I need 3 days to recoup. So that just does not work for me. So I have to have massive intention behind what it is going to do. But it took me a long time to figure that out. And so when it comes to wanting to find me, to your last question there, thehiddenrulesexpert.com is my site. And it's ashleyarmstrong.hiddenrules on most social platforms like Instagram or whatnot. And if anyone's interested in wondering what their success monster archetype is so that they can understand who they are in the moment right now, how they're functioning as a human being, it's the successmonsterquiz.com. And that's basically a little bit about me.
Beauty. Well, Ashley, thank you for making the appearance on the Speaking to Expand podcast. I appreciate you taking your time here, and we'll wrap it up here. Thank you for listening, y'all. Cheers.
Awesome. We didn't get to talk about you though. I like to have two-way conversations. It was all one-rated and I could barely hear you too, so I feel so bad. I would love to know more about you and like what's your passion behind this. I know we started off for before we finished your recording. I don't know if you hit stop yet. It
Sure.
looks like you
No,
still
not
are.
yet. You're good. You're
Good.
good. We're still good.
The only reason why I go on to anything like this, TV shows and everything else are totally different, but the only reason I go on to podcasts is because the person on the other side has a massive goal, passion behind what they're trying to do. And they're doing everything they possibly can to bring a message to the masses. And so I never like to get off these things until I really understand what that goal is for you and making sure that I'm helping you reach that goal. So, can you tell me a little bit more as to really why you're bringing everyone here outside of what you had said previously?
Sure. So, looking at where one thing I noticed is speakers, if you're a speaker, normally you have something very valuable to share. I wanted to give a platform for those lessons to be learned in the context of business. Because speaking in business, if you're qualified enough to speak on it, you're normally pretty talented at it. Normally there's a business on the back end of that. But I haven't seen a show yet or podcast yet, call it whatever you want, that dives deep into the through line between personal development, speaking, and business, and kind of being that cross section between the three of them. And that's, I think you might have picked that up by the questions I was asking you, because that's something that intrigues me. And I think I'd love to be that place where people can go to kind of, like you said, pull back the curtain and see, okay, what's actually going on here? Even I noticed at an event, I was at an event in Dallas in October, and I talked to two different people. One person hadn't spoken on the stage, and I noticed the way I approached them, and I guess how I had positioned them in my own head was totally different. Just because one person I'd seen speak on stage,
Right.
and one person I hadn't, even though they both could have spoken on stage or not spoken on stage, and that was, it was just really interesting for me to see that. So spreading that message, that through line, is what I would say is really cool, and also building relationships with awesome people like yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, I wrote it down. Your business moves at the speed of relationships. So I get to meet really cool people like you as well.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here doing.
I love that. So, would you say that the reason why you're bringing this message to the masses is because it's something that you yourself needed when you started out?
You go.
So, it's really personal then.
Oh yeah, of course. I wouldn't do this just if I wasn't personally involved in it too. Because I'm learning just as I'm learning. I hope people can hear this and learn from it just as I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that such a beautiful thing that like we get to be human beings and have a human experience and go through trials and tribulations and aha moments. And if we're brave enough that we can put ourselves in a position to share that, as you say, pull back the curtain, lift up the hood so other people can realize they can shatter their own glass ceiling and reach for the stars and make something happen. Like, what an honor that is. So I'm really grateful that you invited me here. Thank you so much. And I really hope that everyone who's listening to everything that you have put out there into the universe, that they're taking it away with, all the passion that you have put behind this project. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making the appearance. And it's the first time someone ever turned the camera back on me. So I think it was fun.
Really?
Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
man.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's what sets us apart, I guess, sometimes.
There we go. All right. Well, I'm gonna put in here again. Thanks for listening, y'all.